Alex Pereira is on one of the most legendary runs in the history of the sport. Between back-to-back wins over Jiri in less than a year's time, saving UFC 300 and stopping Jamal Hill after pushing Herb Dean away, and now saving UFC 303 both when Conor dropped out and after the rest of the night was pretty meh. Yeah, I can definitely say right now that I'm Tommy from MMA On Point. A massive thank you to our channel Hall of Famers for all their continued support, and Alex Pereira is already the fighter of the year. Which is an insane notion because we're just over halfway through this thing, but there's no possible way anybody is going to top what he's done. As I mentioned in the intro, it's not even just the fighting. Of course, both finishes this year of Hill and now Prohaska were highlight reel moments, legendary really, between the called off cup shot and now the head kick that broke his toe that he just popped back in himself afterwards all nonchalant. But this is also back-to-back massive events that this guy headlined and saved. The big 300th show, Poatan gave it weight. Don't get me wrong, Max and Justin were the big moment, but Alex capstoned that card with the perfect win. And now International Fight Week goes to hell in a handbasket, and who steps in at the last damn second? A guy with the same injuries as Conor who was forced off the card, who put his toe back where it belongs after he just headshot deaded one of the baddest dudes in the sport. I mean, who is better than Poatan right now? For those two bouts alone, the man is the fighter of the year, but there is no chance in hell we don't see Alex in the cage again before 2024 is up. And depending on the matchup and what he does in it, the implications could be a hell of a lot bigger than just fighter of the year. After all, Joe Rogan queued up the audience in the post-fight interview with Pereira to now want and hope that the man moves up to heavyweight. And at the post-fight presser, Dana fully acknowledged it and sounds on board too.
I know that's what people want to see. We'll see how this whole thing plays out.
So if this man somehow becomes a 3-division champion, the first ever, and does it this year, we're not just talking about fighter of the year anymore, we're talking about one of the greatest fighters ever now. Possibly the greatest year the sport's ever had. And you want to know what's even crazier is that if Alex loses at heavyweight, it's not going to take him out of the running for fighter of the year. It really wouldn't even matter that much to his legacy at all. Name anybody who is even remotely close to him right now in this year as far as big time fights go. You cannot, because there is nobody. Alex Pereira is the biggest star in the sport today. He's the UFC's biggest attraction. There's no other active fighter, notice that I said active, who remotely sniffs that top spot. Not O'Malley, not Islam, not Izzy. Alex has transcended the whole bunch at the moment, and if he does win at heavyweight, I can't even imagine how big his star will be. Now, there are some serious complications to this though. We have an interim champion that the actual champion refuses to fight, and we have a different bout with the champion that the UFC is hell-bent on making happen. Dana reiterated it again last night. Jones versus Stipe is happening no matter what. Aspinall, of course, will be defending his interim title in Manchester next month, so there's lots of moving parts that could make a Poatan title fight difficult. In May, Jones stated in a series of tweets what appeared to be great interest in a super fight with Alex. But he's also DM'd fans and told them he's retiring after Stipe. Why is he DMing random fans? Because John Jones is a weird person, but he's also said publicly on several occasions that he's considering retirement after the Miocic fight. Personally, I'm not holding my breath on this giant super fight between Alex and John. I think a much more realistic scenario is Aspinall wins next month, Jones retires after Stipe, Tom gets the undisputed upgrade, and he and Poatan end the UFC's calendar year with one of the biggest fights in forever. If by chance though Jones ends up staying around and he wants to fight Alex, that would be one of the all-time fuckovers that's ever happened in the sport as it relates to Aspinall. But the UFC would absolutely justify it because honestly they wouldn't be wrong. That would probably be a way bigger fight. And I hate saying this, but I'd be lying if I told you I didn't want to see it more than Aspinall Jones. I know, it's super messed up, but I don't really think John is fighting anymore after Stipe. I feel pretty confident about that. So hopefully this all leads to Aspinall's first defense being against the biggest star in the sport right now. Alright, enough fantasy booking. Let's talk about the rest of the card, shall we? Enough cannot be said about Dan Ige, Diego Lopez, and the power of the UFC machine. For this fight to go from short notice Lopez Ortega at featherweight to night before weigh-ins a shift to lightweight, then literally hours before the fight, during the show, a switch to an entirely different opponent at 165 is one of the most insane things that has ever happened in this entire sport. First of all, Dan Ige's balls must scrape the ground that he walks on. How the hell does that man ever move around with those things, let alone fight? 4 hours notice. He took a fight and was competitive on a sixth of a day's notice. And for Lopez to agree to this insanity after everything he'd already been through, it is just utter madness. For what it was worth, the fight was a hell of a fun scrap, elevated massively by the circumstances surrounding it. And then there's the UFC's part in this whole thing. This is why nobody is ever going to beat them in mixed martial arts, because what other promotion could both logistically put this together, have the weight with the commission to even do something this insane, and then put all these moving parts in place in just a few hours' time, on top of making promos and everything else? It is beyond the scope of any other promotion by a huge margin. This whole situation and fight was just one big flex by the UFC, and of course their newest star, even though he's been their star for a while, and I told you about him in a video a few years ago, Hunter Campbell, who spearheaded this whole Ige Lopez fight. Honestly, 303 surviving losing Conor, along with like 3 other fights that got butchered right before the event, just shows how unstoppable this UFC machine really is. They barely lost any of that $20 million gate. At this point, the UFC might be too big to fail, which isn't to say this was some magical, amazing card, because other than the 2 fights at the top, yeah, it was not. The prelims had a few bright spots, and most of the main card was a dud. Definitely not the big high-profile victory that Ian Machado Gary was looking for against MVP. That fight really had the biggest name value outside of the main event, and it was just a weird one. Don't think it did very much for Ian. Alright, let's wrap up this autopsy with some numbers and awards, shall we? The third ever June 29th UFC event saw 13 fights with 5 KO, TKOs, no subs, and 8 decisions, for a total cage time of 2 hours, 20 minutes, 16 seconds. Only 2 dogs won on the night. The other 11 were all favorites. Macy Chasson beating Mayra Bueno Silva via second round TKO was plus 3,300. Man, I wish I could go back in time just one day. Ian Machado Gary had 7 minutes, 29 seconds of control time against MVP. That's more than every other UFC bout he's ever had combined, earning him our So You're a Wrestler Now award. That was the first KO TKO loss of Bueno Silva's entire career, and despite the canoe carved out of her head, she was hopping around and ready to go still. Impressive. Roman Dolidze landed the most significant strikes of his entire career in his victory over Anthony Smith with 100. Good for him. Dan Ige took the shortest notice fight in UFC history, earning him our legendary Preston Garvey award. Further, Diego Lopez had a fight go from 145 to 155 the night before the event, had his opponent drop out during the card, and then took a fight with a new opponent at 165, earning him our Infinite Negative Fucks award. A little fun fact to end the show, Poatan landed the exact same number of significant strikes with the exact same outcome in both of his fights with Jiri. 38 landed and a KO TKO. That is synergy or black magic, you decide. I'll tell you who is truly a wizard though, the editor of this video, Max Randall. He does his magic in the editing bay and gets these autopsies out for you the morning after a card. Please follow him on all his socials and check out his awesome YouTube channel. A big shout to the channel Hall of Famers yet again. You guys are the best. You make the autopsy possible, and fight fans, you too could be a Hall of Famer. Just hit join. There's exclusive content and other fun stuff. Like and subscribe or Pereira's Fight Shaman will curse you. Let's chat in the comments about this event. Do you think Jones is going to fight anybody but Stipe? What should be next for Alex? I want all your hottest and coldest takes. And yes, I do read them. You might even see me down there replying to a few. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you at 304.